okay, I want you to imagine your average loan officer, which, like you said, we have our hands in the cookie jar. They don't. I think we would both agree they shouldn't, right? Because it's not a full-time job. It's a job and a half. I mean, I run a team of 60, right? We have a very hands-on service. I know you have a team as well. You know, we're like barely riding the wave, right? And it's like, dude, you're an originator with a full-time job, and you're trying to stay on top of this. It's gonna change faster than you can ever learn it, right?
Yeah, and I have my team providing me weekly reports with this is what's been changing, this is what's doing. We have live calls and reports that come in that I can actually read, so I can stay on top of it.
So a loan officer that's in that situation, right, where they don't have the means, nor should they try to do all of this themselves, as far as staying on top of what they should do, right? Let's say they're at the beginning of their journey, their budgets are low. But what are some things that they can quickly do that doesn't require a heavy understanding of all of this to get some baseline presence set up?
That Google business profile is number one. It's not difficult to set up, but you want to make sure that that's set up. Number two is that Facebook business page for the reasons we discussed. Number three is their LinkedIn profile. Make sure those are dialed in. That's where they want to start as far as an organic search presence for people that are either looking to find out more about them or possibly for them just picking up the random loan because somebody's going online to look for a mortgage.
I love that. And that's, those are all free. So, I mean, that's just fantastic advice. I mean, if budgets are concerned, then that allays that fear. One thing that I, just from my perspective, doing a lot of, direct response, direct to consumer marketing for the last greater part of a decade, one of the things I've observed is how critical, and this is what I was saying earlier, we're two sides of the same coin, how critical it is to have that brand presence because, I can't remember where I read this. Maybe it was influenced by Robert Cialdini, but essentially there's a primitive part of our brain, right? We have evolved biologically much slower than we've evolved technologically, right? So, the analogy is if you were to, let's just say that the power grid went down, the water system stopped working, it would be about 72 hours after the food spoils, after we're dehydrated, we're running out of water, the stores have been ransacked. Be about 72 hours, before we return to how primitive we really are, right? So we have a lot of safety nets around us psychologically that allow us to be civilized. But a week of that uncivilization happening, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know if you remember the Fire Festival, but seeing pictures of how people were like starting to become in absence of resources. We're this close to being back in the animal kingdom at any given time, right? We just have a lot of luxuries that prevent us or shield us from that. But one of the things that I think it was Cialdini talked about is remembering that nobody wants to be the person to find out if the berries are poisonous to eat. So there's a part of us biologically ingrained deep in our brain that knows if we eat the wrong berry, we may die. And it's not a good death. It ain't quick. And it's not pleasant, right? And so we approach strange things that we're unfamiliar with very hesitantly, right? And it's actually safer to go another day of starvation, potentially, than choosing the wrong berry, right? And so having that in our brain, it's kind of it's a safety mechanism biologically that prevents us from taking action on certain things, right? So the way that this shows up in a buying cycle is the borrower, the prospect, they see any sort of negativity, they go, you know what, we'll just keep renting, right? They see any reason to leave, and they go, yeah, it just ain't worth it. I'd rather starve another day than eat the wrong berry, right? And I don't blame them because buying a house for a lot of people may be the largest transaction they're ever a part of, right? So the stakes are high. If they make a bad financial decision, it could mean generations of their bloodline paying the price. Or there's a lot that goes into this, right? And so being seen as somebody worth working with, being seen as somebody safe to work with, being seen as the berry bush that's safe to eat from, essentially, is not nice to have. It's not optional. This is a requirement of business, because I've seen a lot of people that have either no brand presence or, like we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, criminal records things popping up. It's like, dude, there's no amount of leads that, I mean, there is, but there's no economical amount of leads that is going to help you overcome the friction you're introducing from not being seen as safe to work with. And I don't think that can be overstated. It's a requirement, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Especially if you have outgoing lead generation. If you are generating leads, those people, they think to themselves subconsciously, you came to me. I need proof on why I want to work with you. And they may entertain the beginning of the conversation, and you would think that, hey, they get comfortable. But one of the things that most of our originators, if we don't train them, if you will, to ask, they're always amazed at. So anybody can pick up the phone and someone says, hey, I'm looking to get a mortgage. And they're like, oh, great. How did you hear about me? Well, I found you on Google. Oh, fantastic. I got a lead from Google. These people just randomly found me. That's great. Well, what they don't realize is when someone says, well, I got referred to you from this real estate agent, or, with your system, if they're getting passed along and there's, now it's somebody that was an outgoing and now they're a pass off. And that person, if you ask them when you talk to them and you say, let me ask you a question, did you happen to Google me? You will find, I'd like to say it's 9 times out of 10, but it's even more than that. It's like 9.6 out of 10. That somebody will say, oh, yeah, I did. They will Google you before they even reach out to you because they want to know if you're an axe murderer, if you're going to rush off with their money, especially something like getting a mortgage. This isn't buying a TV off Costco. This is something that, they've got a lot emotionally invested in. They're concerned about being taken advantage of. And when we're unfamiliar with the process, most consumers are unfamiliar with getting a mortgage. It's not something they do often. It creates fear. Just like if I buy a car, how often do I buy a car, right? And when I say creates fear, it's not panic, but there is an anxiety or a fear of being taken. If I go buy a car and I say, hey, I have this preconceived notion that the salesperson is going to try to raise the price of the car so that they can make more money. And now this is an adversarial relationship. And that's how people still view getting a mortgage. They think that it's an adversarial relationship. They think that the person on the other end of the phone is going to try to raise their fees and raise their rates. And what they're doing is they're putting themselves in a position. They're saying like, okay, I'm ready to battle. What you need to do is put yourself on their side. And one of the best ways to do that is with the reviews, the testimonials, the social proof, where you could say, hey, these are what my previous clients have already said. Did you read my reviews on Google? Have you seen my, posts about, different clients that I've helped, that kind of a thing. And now that lets their guard down because they can check those boxes that you're not going to take advantage of them, right? That you're going to be on their side, that you've got their best interests at heart, kind of.